happy that so many are here. For me, speaking in front of a group is not scary. My first day of teaching high school, I walked in and there were 33 ninth grade boys. You don't want to see that in the classroom. You want to see one or two girls that will raise their hand and not poke at each other. And then, because I was nervous and I was swiveling in a chair, I swung it around and planted both my tiny feet into the waste rubber basket and promptly fell over on my face. But everyone laughed, and then I said, "Thank you very much. I'm glad you were paying attention." And they thought I did it on purpose, so it was really cool. So don't worry about anyone here. They're friends. Most people are afraid to talk in front of people. Others enjoy it. Just know you have an important story to tell. And I look forward to hearing them all. And we will have them archived because the 20th and 21st century one day will be ancient history and nothing will be recorded. So here we have some stories from the borough, and you're all like the Monarch. So thank you for coming. And the first person up will be my cohort, one of them, in the writing program called Ampersand Writing Group, and she is going to talk to you about some of her writing experience.
It's nice to see everybody here this afternoon. My name is Susan Lippett, for those of you who don't know me, and I am from Westborough. I came to writing about 7 or 8 years ago when I retired from 18 years of managing a dance studio and spending my days with girls between the ages of 2 and 18, and it was a wonderful career. And prior to that, I had a career early with the telephone company. So spent a lot of time with numbers and organizing skills and those kinds of things, but not a lot of creative writing. And I thought, well, maybe I could wake up that part of my brain. I got intrigued with the concept of knowing the immigrant story of my family. And I was lucky enough to know my great-grandfather, but I didn't really know his story. And he came here many years ago, back in 1890. So my husband and I gainfully went to the Isle of Jersey off the coast of France to find my great-grandparents' story. And it has begun, you know that expression, down the rabbit hole? Well, I'm way down in the rabbit hole and have discovered the story, but out of it came the feeling that I want my own great-grandchildren to know me. I'm going to not be here, and I thought it would be fun, like I was lucky enough to know my great-grandfather, but there were still many parts of his story I didn't know that I had to discover, and I'm sure there's plenty more. So I joined Mary's writing group at the library, and here we are today. Memoir writing has led to poetry, and it's just kind of naturally evolved, so I'll share a little bit of that too. And today I brought vignettes, small vignettes. Mom's hands. Mom, standing in front of the refrigerator, with her hands floating above the ice cube tray, had just finished painting her nails, and the cold of the freezer dried her nails quickly. Her long, beautiful fingers, her elegantly painted nails, aha, a wonder to behold. The carefully selected polish color complemented her lipstick color and coordinated with her outfit. Her fingers were strengthened by years of flying over the keyboard at 90 words per minute. They flew in the evening over her exquisite needlework with flashes of her nail color. The nail polish was not the only adornment on Mom's fingers. Her right hand had a collection of rings to choose from, garnets, sapphires, and aquamarines. And on her left hand, 2 platinum rings held her commitment to my father. They were not only beautiful, her elegant hands could bake a pie, scrub the back of 3 kids' necks, and ruthlessly pull weeds. Her firm handshake expressed confidence and openness. Yet her hands are only a small part of who she was, and I dreamed that one day her hands would become my hands, and I would embody all that I loved about her. The next one is about one of my favorite places on earth, the breeze in Maui. Closing my eyes, I let the breeze whisper over my face. Can I say this is like any other place I have been? When I'm at the beach, any beach in New England, do I get the same feeling when the breeze blows over me? No, nowhere is it like this. The trade winds are up today, causing the fan palms to wave their fronds as if greeting their fellow palm trees. Sometimes they curve a little, taking a bow. This breeze has come all the way across the Pacific Ocean and is arriving here now. I feel the immenseness of the ocean and the smallness of the island. Perhaps the trees are bowing to the ocean. And if you listen to the wind, you might hear aloha. This is called I Am. I am the little sister that sat on the bleachers and watched my brothers play Little League baseball in the summer. Or I was sitting in the tall grass playing with the other sisters. Teams were arranged by neighborhoods, so I knew most of the sisters. We all went to school together. My brothers loved baseball. Sometimes they were able to play on the same team when they both fell in the same age range. Those years were easier on my parents because there were half as many games. Dad sometimes coached first or third base. Mom would sit with the other mothers. She always rooted for the team. With her superior knowledge of baseball, she could have been a coach, too. I think she would have liked that better than gossiping with the other moms. Mom hated gossip and could keep a secret with no effort. Because she worked in the education department, she knew things that were going on in town, both big and small. My brothers loved baseball. They practiced in the backyard hitting wiffle balls so they didn't have to chase them. Chuck was a sharp left-handed pitcher with keen eyesight. Dad would ice his shoulder after a game to keep the swelling down. I kept waiting to love baseball too. Girls didn't get a chance to play softball until they were in middle school. There were no little leagues for girls. I was sure after all that watching, I would love it too, but it never happened. Some girls just floated around the bases, but I plodded. I played well, but not great. I never quite grasped that gazelle-like grace. I did all the drills, but I never rose above average, and the rapture that captivated Bill and Chuck escaped me. When my brother's team won a game, we went to Dairy Queen, and I got a soft vanilla cone dipped in chocolate. They were my favorite treats of the summer. As I look back, it seems rather harsh that we didn't get ice cream when they lost. My memory may be incorrect, or maybe we didn't go after every victory. It doesn't really matter to me what the accurate story is. I prefer to preserve the happy memory in my own way. And a couple of poems. Black and White. Cody and Cooper laid on their lawns at night after dark, so no one would complain to the police about violating the leash laws. They couldn't see each other, but they could hear. Cody, big, long black hair and a little slobbery, goofy. Cooper, big, white, tight curls, a little tense. They barked, woofed, and yicked, taking turns, perhaps sharing their daily report of squirrels, chased or walked or great walks. Did they speak of their owners? We'll never know. They're both gone now, and I miss them dearly, but I fondly remember their evening conversations, reminding me that it isn't just people that need community. And the last poem comes from the chapbook that's put out by the Southborough Open Land Foundation. They have an event every year, and if you haven't had a chance to partake, it's really a wonderful event. They have artists come and set up installations on one of their lovely properties, the Beale property in Southborough. They come in the middle of June, set up their artwork, and Poets are invited to come and write a poem if you are inspired by a piece of art. But it's beautiful trails, it's a nice way to be outside, so I encourage you all to do this. At the end of July, they select a couple of poems to represent each piece of art. That type of poetry is called ekphrastic, a word I had never heard before, so it was new to me. But it is a poem written in honor and tribute to a piece of art. And the most famous ekphrastic poem is Ode to a Grecian Urn, just in case you need an example. So this year, I wrote a piece called Those Days. I long for the days of color hikes, matching crayons to leaves, rocks, and sticks. You clutched a handful of those orphan colors, the ones with no wrappers to tell you who they are. The grays, the browns, the greens eagerly raised their woodland hands and said, "Pick me, pick me." The clump of granite, the moss against the old tree, the leaf left over from some past time. But the coral, where is the coral? We doubt, but we know nature is clever. It's here somewhere, we just have to look. As the trail turns, we find it. In a maple leaf, just one, where nature decided to play. It's in a blueberry leaf, in the center, where sometimes the red doesn't reach. And we know we are part of nature's palette, painted infinitely. Thank you.
Yes, Sue is also part of the Ampersand Writing Group and a lovely contributor, and this is a little thing for you to
thank you
remember
so
this.
much.
Hang it up next to your master's degree and all of this other wonderful
Thank you.
I type those myself, of course. Remember, I'm dyslexic, so anything you see wrong, it's my fault. Our next guest is a gentleman who is very young, and I think he had readers' fright, because even though he told me he was coming, he is not here. So I'm going to move down to John Curtis, who has little ones who are dying to see him.
My base is here already.
Yes. So all the important people in his life are here to hear his story. So come on down. You have a microphone over here. Do you need a water?
I'm going to go sloppy since we're being rated.
Yeah. Do you want?
I have my own.
Okay.
Coco. Are you talking to me? Are you
She's
talking
telling
to me?
her story.
Hey, Coco. It's for you, buddy.
John Curtis, take it away.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
My name's John Curtis. I'm 73 years old. I was 7 when my family moved to Westborough. We were kind of in the first wave of new people. I remember the first day of school. Some of the kids' dads were farmers. I never met a farm kid before. Farm kids know a lot, like how to get on a horse when the horse is this tall and you're that tall. It was Jimmy Bardsley. Anyway, a lot of the kids said their dad worked at Bay State Abrasives. That was a factory in town. Now abrasives are grinding wheels, sandpaper, things like that. A 7-year-old doesn't know that. I thought their dads worked in a factory that made braces for kids' teeth. And that was kind of yucky. Anyway, I said, my dad's a salesman. And they said, what's that? And if they didn't know what a salesman was, I couldn't explain it. You know, my dad wouldn't give us a glass of milk. He'd kind of sell it to us. He'd say, like, John, this is a nice, good, clear glass of clean, cold milk, you know. And so anyway, one day my mom drove by the factory, and it was a giant building with great big smokestacks. And I was thinking, like, that many kids need braces? So anyway, fast forward 20 years, I'm an actor touring in a children's show, Socks Before Shoes. Most companies were doing fairy tale stories like Cinderella, Snow White, Peter Pan. Our show was all skit comedy. People would say it was like a Saturday Night Live for kids. The first gig was in a place called Iron Mountain. That was a little town right on the northern tip of Michigan, right near the Canadian border. As we drove up to the school, 150 little blonde-haired, blue-eyed kids came out, and they had a funny accent. I just couldn't place it. A teacher told me it was a Finnish accent, and all of their parents were iron miners, just as their grandparents were in Finland. And I thought, wow, that's great. You could pull up a chunk of Finland and plop it in Michigan, and it was like you never left home. So anyway, I thought that would be a great way to see the country, and it was. So for a solid 2 years, we went from Michigan to New Orleans, doing 2 shows a day, 5 days a week, driving in between, until one day the tour finally ended and everything stopped. I mean, everything stopped. There was like a void that had to be filled. So I began to write. Stories seemed to come from out of nowhere, and before long there were many. There's a story about Christmas that's one of my favorites. The name of it is Christmas Morn. And you'll see why I need a drink. It goes like this. 2 Christmas stockings hung on a wall, whose other side was a shopping mall. With so many people to buy all its stuff, the wall began to bulge and bust. My back is breaking. I'm giving way. Don't think I can make it till Christmas Day. Just then, the door opened and closed with a slam, and into the stockings a man did cram. Records and walnuts and apples and puzzles, a monkey with a bottle for a switch and it guzzles, marbles and moonmen and toys with no names, wiggly creatures and all kinds of games. The stockings were hurting and all stretched out too. One was so loaded it almost turned blue. The other was moaning and said, though not loud, "This is what Christmas is all about?" Uh-oh, a nail bent, a crash, and a shout. Ow! This is what Christmas is all about? Every year it's the same. I can't figure it out. I guess it's what Christmas is all about. Oh, it's not so bad. Once a year we get beat. I got 2 cousins, Mickey and Pete. They are filled year-round with 2 stinky feet. Just then, little Jimmy entered the room. He was reeling and racing on his bike named Zoom. He raced round and round over walls, over door, right over the stocking that fell on the floor. Eek! Screamed the stocking, so loud and so clear, but not in a language that people could hear. As smoke in the fireplace perked up its ear, it thought, I'll find Christmas and I'll bring it here. So up the chimney the smoke did flow, and it hopped on some wind and away it did go. High over rooftop and shopping mall, looking for Christmas through gentle snowfall. All through the streets and all through the town. High up on hills and under the ground, peeping through windows from attic to basement. Smoke even looked places where no people things went. It was clear it was near to fulfilling its pledge when it spotted a sign that read orphanage. Smoke rushed to the window with one grand whirl, and what did it see? Why, a sweet little girl. The room was bare, quite empty but clean, as she calmly sat eating her one Christmas bean. No Christmas tree, presents, no toys, just a bean. But she would have Christmas, you'll see what I mean, for smoke worked its magic, as soon shall be seen. So vanished the smoke on into the night, and vanished the night on into daylight. Jimmy awoke, too excited to yawn. It finally came. It was Christmas morn. He sprang from his bed, quick as 1, 2, 3, and zipped down the stairs to look under the tree. In the midst of the presents, why, what did he see? A freckle-faced girl? Oh gosh, golly, gee. "I a present, Jimmy, a present is me," she chattered away. She was only 3. There was talk of a fire. It had taken her home, and how they'd share Christmas so she'd not be alone. But when Jimmy heard that soon she must go, he thought for a second and then cried out, "No! Can we keep her, please, Mother? I want a baby sister." Mother thought for a bit, picked her up, and she kissed her. Jimmy jumped up and he danced round and round. Let's call her Lulu, how does that sound? Lulu was happy as happy could be. She knew she had a real family, complete with a dog, a father and mother, but the best thing of all was she had a big brother. Something had answered the stocking's prayer. Christmas was really quite in the air. So stay happy, children, no need to despair. I tell you, there really is magic out there. It's deep down inside you and heavens above. It's magic that comes from a thing we call love.
Now, where have you been in your writing since you wrote that?
What?
Where have you been in your writing since you wrote this? You have.
I have been painting houses, repairing furniture, working for contractors, doing cosmetic repairs.
Right, if you don't know him, he's
And I was
also
doing
known
street
as
theater in Harvard Square for a while with a group
the
called
furniture
Slapjack.
doc.
Oh.
Yes, that's what his
Oh.
current profession is, but that was such a delightful story and very heartwarming.
Yeah.
And the fact that you knew it verbatim was really amazing, because I'm a little bit older than you, and things are falling out of my ear. You know, if I
No,
tell
I
too
know,
much,
I
I
know,
lose them.
I know.
So I was very impressed with that. And your grandchildren will be so excited, or your niece and nephews.
Grandnieces and
Grandnieces and nephews will be so impressed by the stories that you tell. So thank you very much. And I have a wonderful certificate for you that you can hang up right next to
Oh,
your,
wow,
with the
thank
right spelling on it.
Thank you.
I messed up that too. And I don't know if I
Thank you.
actually introduced myself to everyone that's here. My name is, get ready for this, Dr. Mary Botticelli Christensen.
Oh.
Because I didn't take my husband's name when we got married. The school system said I couldn't use him as a beneficiary. But I told them it was not a law, it was a custom to add your husband's name. So I kept my own name, and we had a child and another one, but the first two had to go to kindergarten. And having the last name of Christensen, they all look like they should be in a Hans Christian Andersen story. Tall blondes with blue eyes. And I'm the mother with the dark hair and 4'11", and a name like Botticelli. So the teacher says to me, "Oh, you must be the stepmother." And my children looked and said, "Mommy, you're not the mommy." So we had a meeting around the table, and I told them that I would be happy to add on Christensen, so you will always know I'm the mommy, but I will always continue to be Mary Botticelli, because can I ever pass for a Christensen? I don't think so. So names are very important, so I just thought I would share that with you. And the reason that we're doing this little event is because you see how poignant the stories are, how wonderfully deep they take you into your community. Each one of you will have a different story to tell, and those who are not here today to tell a story, maybe you'll think about coming back and telling another one. And mine will be the last one, so that I hope you all stay to hear it, because you will cry and then you will laugh, okay? On the back of your program, there is, again, because I'm dyslexic, I couldn't get it to print the way I wanted, but there is an evaluation, just to see if we should continue trying to put this together with, okay, you got the one at the end, the Westborough TV that's been so wonderful to program. I have a TV show there called Kaleidoscope, where I take people from the community and interview them and find out interesting things about them. For example, I interviewed the Rabbi Rachel, another short woman that I really liked. And it was Christmas time in the holidays, so I called it A Woman of Spirit. And everyone anticipated it would be about her as a rabbi. But Rabbi Rachel is an expert across the country and Europe in bourbon. So she can tell you whether or not by tasting if this is good bourbon, where it came from.
Wow.
So she's a woman of spirit, just not the one you thought. And that's what I tried to find about people, something a little interesting, something that's asking them a question that no one ever asked them. You know, like how does someone who works I just did fire chief. How do you come home after dealing with something so traumatic? Every day, you know, I said, well, I kind of metaphorically take a shower. I try to, you know, after I take the shower, I try to release it so I don't bring all the tragedy and the heartache of people home. But it's a way to find out more about people, and as a teacher, finding what's in a person's soul and sharing it with others is really important to me. Well, now we have a woman who slipped in under the guise of taller gentlemen. So Carolyn Spring will be our next
Just the microphone.
Yes, storyteller, and you will find that her story is as intriguing but different.
Different, definitely different. I don't rhyme, okay, we'll start with that. And it's not about something as happy as Christmas. I'll start with that as well. But Mary had asked me to share my story, and here's why. I just have to get my waters open and my glasses on. So there's a young man in the back who is holding this adorable baby, who I hope sticks around. He's going to hear things that my own son does not know. But I want to be able to take a picture of him with the baby so that I can send it to my son, because they've been friends since elementary school.
Oh, how cute.
Some of this is difficult for me to say. Every summer we went to Maine, and every summer I would go see the fortune teller and get my palm read. And she was pretty good, pretty spot on. And on my 50th birthday when we went, it was my actual birthday, I said, you know what, I'm going to spring for the tarot card reading. And I did. And she read the cards, and the year before she said I would live to 82. This year she said to 84. I thought, okay, great. And then usual stuff. And then as I was leaving, she put her hand on my arm, very gently, and she said, you are going to have a very long winter, but you will be okay. About 2 months later, I was diagnosed with my first 2 primary cancers, and 10 years later, almost to the day, with my 3rd primary cancer. I did a little research. Less than 1% of the population get 3 different primary cancers, and less than that live more than 5 years after the 3rd one. I'm at year 6, so I'm in bonus time. I'm telling all this because I was asked to talk about being a survivor and providing tips or things I wish I had known that maybe will help someone else going through the journey. Again, not like Christmas, unfortunately, but I'm happy that I'm here to celebrate Christmas. Years ago, when someone had cancer, people whispered. They go, oh, she has cancer. Like you can't say it out loud, like it's the plague or something, or like it's contagious. And now, unfortunately, so many of us have had it, know someone going through it, or have it currently. Tip number 1, and I've got tips, okay? If you want to let people know, it's okay. It's not contagious. But if you want to keep it to yourself and just be treated what I will call normally, that is okay too. And it might be that at the beginning of your journey, you say nothing, and as time goes on, you feel more comfortable sharing in your choice, especially when it becomes evident that you're going through something. There is no right or wrong. It's your choice, whatever you want to do. Tip number 2, depending on the age of your children, you probably should wait until you have your game plan. I did that for the first 2 times, and with the 3rd, they were older, so I let them know sooner, but not after I had processed it myself first. You have to be ready to tell them, answer their questions, because there will be many questions. And again, depending on the age, you may not like the question. After all, mom's invincible, and we're not supposed to get sick at all, even with a cold. It helped that I could reassure them that I wasn't going to die, that I would live. But not everyone can say that. And so if you're not sure how to talk to your kids, ask a therapist or a guidance counselor. It's okay to ask for help, because the first go around, I didn't handle it really well with my kids. I'll be the first to say it, especially with my daughter. 15, 14, something like that, is kind of a vulnerable age for a young girl. My son was a little older. and he had this amazing support group of guys. And they were just there for him, even though they may not have known that I was going through it. What I did was I needed help, because Matt spent a lot of time in his friends' homes. And I let the moms know what was going on. And so they kept an eye on him for me. And I think that the guys, his friends, did know, but they didn't let him know that they knew. They just treated him as they normally would. So depending on the age of your children, oh, sorry. I'm up to tip, there we go, sorry. In asking for help, we're now up to tip number 3. Ask for help if you need it. This includes driving to chemo, grocery shopping, because back in the day, pre-COVID, there was really not much delivery. Help with the kids, with meals, with cooking, getting someone to clean your house. Whatever you need help with, just ask. People want to help. They really want to help. They need to do it for themselves as well as for you. You need the help. You may not want it. You feel funny asking for it, but they want you to ask. So when they offer, what can I do? Give them something to do, even if it's just something like, you know what, I need this picked up at the store and I'm just not up to going out. Let them do it. I had absolutely amazing people help me, especially the first 2 times when the kids were still home in school. My son was a Boy Scout, so the Scout moms organized the meals for us 3 days a week at dinner time for 5 months while I was going through chemo. My faith community helped, my book club, just people I knew in town. Some people didn't cook, and so they would send a card or a note of encouragement. I still have all those notes and cards. It helps you get through it, knowing you have others supporting you in your battle. And I was remembering on the way here that I still have the comfort shawls. So 2 of the churches in town, as well as my chorus that I sing in, that I still sing in, all made me a comfort shawl. And you wrap it around you when you're going through chemo or when you just need to feel support, even in the evening sitting on the couch with the dog watching TV. It lets you know you have support of your community. And I mentioned it's a battle. It is a battle. People going through cancer are called warriors because it is a daily battle. Long after surgery and treatment, it is still a battle. And some days you lose the skirmish, but don't give up the fight. So those are overall little tips. A little bit more into the nitty-gritty now, the fun things, okay? Tip number 4, you get to choose your own team of doctors, and you can have a different team member if you don't like the one assigned to you. When I was diagnosed with the first 2, I knew who I wanted to be for my surgeon. I asked around, checked him out, and the man was a gifted surgeon, has saved so many lives, and sadly, as well as ironically, he passed last year of inoperable cancer himself. Yeah. So he was my surgeon. I worked out at a women's gym that no longer exists, and several of the women there had gone through cancer, and they said, this is the one you want for your oncologist. Happily, she was assigned to me 17 years later. I still see her twice a year. Some years it was more than that. And she's terrific. She knows my whole life. I know her whole life. You know, you get to know someone, same age, all that. The 3rd team member was the radiation oncologist. Now, the guy that walked in the door was not the person that the women had said to use. So this guy, now mind you, I'm now 2 hours, close to 3 hours into this team meeting. Really feeling overwhelmed with everything, you know, and it's literally 3 days before Thanksgiving, okay? So you can imagine it's hectic enough in your life. So this guy walks in the door, and he has a handshake like a dead fish, if you know what I mean, okay? And he looked like a character from a TV show. I don't know if I can say the name without getting sued, so I'll just say the character's name was George. And he looked a bit like a nebbish. Same with type of glasses, same balding on top, okay? And he just reminded me of him. And I'm thinking, okay, so instantly I'm like, well, okay, he's got a lousy handshake, looks like George, even sounded like George a little bit. So I'm thinking, I don't know. So he proceeds to tell me all about what was going to happen during radiation and the process. Then he starts going into the side effects, possible side effects. And at this point I was done. And I said to him, I said, do I need to know all this now? And he said, no, because I'm not gonna see you for months, so absolutely not, you don't need to know right now. I said, great, so are we done? And he goes, well, I just want you to know, and he proceeded to go through the side effects again. And I was done. And I said to my husband, I said, make him stop. And so my husband said to him, she literally just told you she didn't want to know all the side effects right now. You just said she doesn't need to know them. Please, stop. He said, okay. And he said, well then, I'll see you in a few months. I said, fine. I turned to my husband and I said, I'm not using him. So, anyway, I did end up with a wonderful woman who was an oncologist who listened. So that's the thing that you want when you're choosing your team of doctors, whether it's for cancer or for anything. You want someone who's going to listen, you want someone who's going to be compassionate, and you want someone who's going to be kind, as well as being a good doctor. I'm sure he was a fine physician, but he wasn't the right one for me. Tip number 5, undertake control of things you can when you are in an uncontrollable situation. We're going to talk about hair. Okay? This is my real hair. I can pull on it, right? Okay. But chemo, you will lose your hair. So you want to get your wig while you still have your hair so that your color can be matched. I went with a friend to a great place in Worcester, and she sat with me, and she always wanted to see what I would look like with short hair, so of course we had to try on a Marilyn Monroe type wig, and decided not the right color, not the right style. So we moved on to something that was more like what was my hair. And so much so that when I was taking a trip in between the breast cancer and thyroid cancer surgeries, having 1 month in between those two treatments, I went to Paris with my daughter. And she turned 16, that was what she wanted for Sweet 16, and I was turning 51. And we're on the subway, metro, I think they call it, and so we were with a friend's daughter who lives there, and she's starting to laugh. I said, Dad, what is it? And so she told me, those 2 women over there are complimenting your hair. It was a wig. So I said, should we tell them? And she said, absolutely not. Don't. She said, they'll be mortified if you tell them that it's a wig. I was like, okay. But good to know that it was that good quality and looked that good. Okay. You want to make sure you get your hair cut short. I did not want to get my head shaved. I knew it was all going to come out, but I just couldn't handle that. So I got it cut really short so that and I had that done when the clumps started coming out in the shower, because that's what happens. And I had a friend, the same wig friend, I talked to my longtime hairdresser, and she said, come in after hours. And I got permission to have 1 shot of Bailey's, because you're not supposed to drink on chemo, okay? And Bailey's is my go-to. So I had 1 shot, sitting there, poured. It was a good-sized shot. And every time she would cut a chunk of hair, I would take a little sip of the Bailey's. And my friend drove so that if it affected me, I was okay, because I could get home safely. It was definitely empty by the time I left there. You also want to make sure you get your passport ID done, because if your passport is going to be due within the year or 2 when you're done with treatment, your hair won't be back. So, or it may not be back how you want it. I did not think of that. I wish I had, because I had a passport photo with me in the wig, and I couldn't wait till it was expired so that I could get a new one. And same thing with the driver's license. When it needed to be renewed, my hair had started to come back, but it was super, super, super curly and short. So curly and short, kind of like Little Orphan Annie, or like I'd stuck my finger in a light socket, and it was gray. That's how it came back. Hadn't had colored yet. So again, couldn't wait for it to be expired so that I could get a new license, at least new license picture. So take control of the things that you can while you can. Tip number 6 is all about chemo. You will lose your taste buds. Your taste will change. There's no ways around it. You will feel fatigue like you've never felt before. For the women who are listening, remember all those sleepless nights when the kids were babies and all that, and you just felt like, oh my God, I just want like an hour of sleep? It's worse than that. And you don't have the baby to cuddle. So, but you're alive. The things that I give out when I know people that are going through chemo or starting it, it's old-fashioned lemon drops. Not your regular lemon drops, but they're old-fashioned lemon drops. You can get them on Amazon. Hope it's okay to mention that. So I would pop one of those before I would want to eat something, so that about an hour before, so I could actually taste it. There were a couple of months where the only thing I could tolerate was chicken noodle soup, which is a great food because you've got the chicken broth, you've got pieces of chicken, you've got vegetables, and you've got noodles in there. So you're getting your food groups covered with carbs and protein. The kids had these great meals that people were bringing, and I'm eating the chicken noodle soup, maybe a few saltines in there. Tip number 7 is you need to keep up with your exercise, and if you haven't exercised, start. It's really important to exercise during treatment and after. The exercise will help combat the fatigue, even if it's just taking a walk in the backyard, playing fetch with the dogs, having a catch with the kids if your kids are little. There were times when I could only do like even halfway around the circuit, and for the machines that I worked out at, and that's okay because it was something. And it's also important to do the exercises that they give you to do at home after the surgery. I had a lot of lymph nodes, most of them actually taken out in my left arm, and they gave me exercises to do to keep the arm moving and all that. Did I do them? No, because I thought, well, I don't really need to do them. Anyway, I ended up with something called frozen shoulder, which I had no idea what it was. I just knew I couldn't move my arm really much above like this. And so I was talking with someone, because I'm a member of Rotary, and we were planning a triathlon, and I'm talking with a woman who, and we met at another person's office, and there was an orthopedist there who also was a survivor. And so she said, what's with your arm? I told her. She said, what, how far can you do? So I showed her, and she said, you have frozen shoulder. And I'm like, what is that? She said, when you can't move your arm. I was like, okay. I said, what do I do? She said, you need physical therapy. She's like, go tell your oncologist to get you some PT. Okay, so that's what I did, and now, let me go. I can raise my arm, okay? But it took a long time to get there. Tip number 8 is, it's a little morbid, but just so you know, it's really okay to plan your funeral before your surgery. You don't even have to tell anyone that you've planned it. It could be between you and the funeral director of your choice. I can tell you right now, the funeral home downtown has a file on me. I know my kids don't know. My husband I only told recently, but I want Amazing Grace. I want the Judy Collins version of Amazing Grace when I have my funeral. And I know that my husband wouldn't even think of that. He doesn't even know the song. So now all of you know that are here, and also the ones watching it. So just know when I go, when my time comes, somebody make sure, please, I've got Amazing Grace. Okay, thank you. Tip number 8 is compartmentalizing to get through the day if you need to. Practice mindfulness. Now, by way of background, I am someone who got kicked out of yoga for being too stressed. No jokes. I was asked to come back when I wasn't so stressed and try it again. Because during the last phase of yoga, someone that I knew, the mother of one of my son's friends, started to snore. And really loud, like a dog snores. And I just started to laugh. And it totally threw off everybody in the class, because we all knew each other, and they all started to laugh. And I was told by the leader, please come back when you're less stressed. And I was like, okay. So that was it. That was the last yoga class I ever went to. But I found mindfulness, and it's great because it's Zoom, so I don't actually have to go anywhere. I can do it in the evening, so if I'm tired, I can just be in my sweatpants and my fluffy slippers and practice mindfulness with this wonderful group of people. wonderful community with a wonderful leader. And it really has made a big difference in my life in getting through difficult days and difficult times. And it shocked the heck out of me because I never would have thought of it. But it was suggested to me to try it, and I did, and I'm forever grateful. You also want to be in the moment. You don't want to look too far ahead, especially while you're going through treatment, because if you look too far ahead, you're going to feel overwhelmed. It's going to get you down. So just deal with today and not with weeks from today. Look at today. It's okay to plan, but stay focused in the moment to help you get through a tough day. I think I'm up to tip number 10. You want to surround yourself with positive people. People that are going to be there to support you, unless, of course, you happen to be related to them, and they still whisper the word cancer. Whenever you talk to them, how's the cancer? I don't know, Mom, it's fine. It's gone. They cut it out, okay? Just try not talking to them too much. You heard me say Mom because, sorry, Mom, she's still with us. I don't know why I'm looking up there. I should really look east because she's living in Dedham. She's someone who always whispered the word. Unlike my mother-in-law, who would call me every night before a chemo treatment, you can do this. And then she would call me the night of, how are you doing? And she lives in New York, so she couldn't be there. But that's a positive person to have. And also shocked the hell out of me because I didn't know she liked me that much. Tip number 11 is you want to find a good support group. The first go around, I was in a support group with wonderful women, and it was based through one of the churches here in town. And sadly, some of them have passed from cancer, but you could ask anything, talk about anything, because they knew what you were going through. I remember being in a business meeting, and it was early in the morning, and I'm not a morning person, I never have been, but I went because I was trying to still work through all the treatment. And this woman at my table asked, and I said, yes, I'm being treated for cancer. Her reply was, I know what you're going through. My friend has it. And my reply, until you've had it 3 times, you have no idea what I'm going through. Better answer would have been, until you have walked in my shoes, don't tell me how to tie my laces. Again, find a good support group. Tip number 12, and I'm just about done. Accept your new normal as best you can. You are not and will never be the same person. And that is okay. You are here, you are alive, and yes, some days will be harder than others, but maybe the next day will be better. And be kind to yourself when the cancer interferes with your life. And most important, don't give up hope. Hope is so key. A positive attitude is key to surviving and thriving. And I thank you all for listening. Appreciate it.
Carolyn and I worked on a memoir piece for her when I first came to town with the writing group, and we were working on the tips to help someone else go through the process for a legacy, and I think you've done a great job.
Thank you.
Survival and a sense of humor, so thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Because as you can tell by the swinging of the scales of the emotional responses to some of these stories, some make us feel warm and fuzzy, some make us laugh, some make us appreciative of our health and our empathy for those who don't have that benefit. So I'm really moved by the stories that I'm hearing and the authenticity of which they're told. The next person that's going to join us up here is, I met her doing a TV segment, Malone, see now I can't think of it because you're just sitting there looking at me. So tell me the name of the company again.
Dolan and Maloney.
Right, I got it backwards, I kept saying Maloney wasn't gonna work. On Route 9, and I just love all of the dad jokes and everything, so I went in there to find out what was going on in that kind of establishment. And then I found out that almost everyone there is either related by blood, related by in-law, or married to someone who works with them. And I was curious to see, how does a company run if everyone takes home their job with the same person they were working with, or their brother or their father, you know, so it was really an interesting story. But Kate is many faceted, and she has a wonderful relationship with a four-legged creature. And she's going to talk to us a little bit about that. So come on down.
Thanks, Mary. So I'm a Westborough County, and definitely remember when I feel like the deli counter was right here, right? No.
Which one?
At Julia's.
Julia's.
Yeah. So, and talking about the business, I grew up in the house that was actually at this property before the shopping center
Wow.
was here. It was picked up on wheels and moved to the corner of Flanders.
I know the house.
Yeah, so that's the house I was born and raised in, and now I live about half a mile down the road, right off of Haskell. And it's funny how things happen, and I was a middle school English teacher myself for 15 years, and if you haven't read Michelle Obama's book, it's really moving, and her big message is that your story is your power. So I appreciate everybody taking the time to share a little bit of your power and your story with us today. So the Dakota and the Lakota call horses Sanka, meaning holy religious dog, and believe that horses are our relatives. This connection runs deeper than blood. It's spiritual. Humans spent a millennia depending on the horse, while the rest of the world may consider them simple animals of prey, similar to like cows. The truth is that horses can feel every emotion that you and I feel. Their thoughts are even richer than those of canines. Horses feel love. They can feel hate. They can be traumatized to the point that they're just existing and trying to get through the day. Wild horses live together in a herd with a handful of mares and their youngsters, along with one or two stallions. Once they reach maturity, bachelors form their own bands and run together. But in the herd, the more vulnerable young move to the inside, while the stronger horses move to the outside. It's the stallion's job to defend the herd. But the magic of the herd is their heartbeat. Horses in a herd synchronize their heartbeats so that when one horse gets scared, they all know to be alerted together at the same time. When we work with horses, though they're much larger than us, our heartbeats slow down and synchronize with theirs. This slowing of the system helps us to relax and to release our own anxieties. One fun fact is that horses recognize us first, not by our voice or smell, but by our own unique heartbeats. I've been lucky enough to spend my life amongst horses. I grew up riding right down the street at Denny Street at Doc's Farm, and have had many deep and meaningful relationships with them. Few horses have taught me as much as the horse that I have now. I call him Tubby, but his registered name is Justin Trouble. He's part of the Justin Morgan horse line. When I first met Tubby, he was just getting back to work after a serious leg injury. At 18, he was well past midlife and was enjoying his time at Emerald Isles Equestrian Center in Westborough. It's right on the Route 30, right on the Grafton line there. My friend Kerry offered to let me take him for a ride in the back 20 acres. Tubby was steady. The speeding cars on the road, the slippery asphalt, and the barking dogs didn't raise the slightest concern. Growing up, I rode mostly thoroughbred horses, and these horses will take off running for their lives at the slightest movement. After a number of rides, I learned to trust Tubby. We could run through the fields at top speed, both pretending that we were a decade or two younger, and I could sit on his back and feel the sun, my arms spread wide, riding him bareback. It was magic. Last summer, Tubby injured his leg again. We helped him to heal, but decided that ultimately it would be best if he moved to a retirement situation and became someone's backyard pet. I cried a tearful farewell, grateful for all of the time that we'd had. 2 short months after I said goodbye, we got a message that Tubby had injured himself. This time we learned that he had shattered his hind right leg in 5 places. It was a life-ending injury, especially at his advanced age of 22. We brought him home, and I once again said a tearful goodbye. But we just couldn't seem to find the right moment. Tubby seemed so happy to be back home, and he snuggled my kids. He happily munched on the grass, and he honestly seemed to be living his best life. So my husband warned me that we already had a golden retriever at home, and paying for Tubby to live his life at the farm was, as a walking companion for me, just wasn't gonna cut it. Tubby takes more supplements than I do and has monthly massages, pedicure. His bills are pretty intense. So to help pay his bills, Tubby started working with me, helping me to introduce people to horses and the magic that they share. As someone diagnosed with anxiety, I know firsthand how horses, but especially Tubby, could help people find their inner peace. Each week, I've watched Tubby's presence help people to release their fears, while also working to exert control and respect in a relationship. I witnessed the serenity that they found while meditating by his side. Even just the simple act of brushing a horse seemed to help them find their inner peace. I have my master's degree in the science of education and was eager to explore others' data and research on the healing abilities of horses. I learned that horses are at the bottom of the food chain and have hypervigilance of sight and sound, so that they can detect the slightest sound, smell, or movement, so they can be alerted to the life-threatening presence of a predator. This ability to read with flawless accuracy, not just the behavior of others, but also their silent intentions, helps horses to have the psychological mirroring expertise of the most gifted therapist. When people come to work with Tubby, they're trying something new. They're creating entirely new paths in their brain, which allow them to release old patterns. When people allow their hearts to journey into new, uncomfortable places, they have the steady heartbeat and support of the horse. The transformations I've witnessed have been truly inspiring. It's amazing to watch a shy, reserved woman peacefully meditate in a field of flowers, while a 1,000-pound animal with 5-inch teeth nudges her back. To watch an antsy 3-year-old hold on to the lead rope of a horse, follow directions, and lead him all around the arena without any help. Yesterday, I spent 2 hours at the barn scraping, soaking, and treating Tubby's feet. I'm not sure that I'll ever carry a rider again, but the love, lessons, and joy that this horse shares are truly remarkable. I can't wait to see what he teaches me next. I'll have to take a photo with Tubby to show you.
Yes, you wanted to bring a photo of Tubby. I suggested she bring Tubby, but that's because I'm a city kid. And when I was my first year teaching, I taught in a rural school system. And in October, we didn't have any students. And I walked in and they said, you have meetings all day. And I said, well, where are the students? And they said, they're at the Big E. I said, what's a Big E? And they looked at me with incredulous look. And they said, that's where they go to show their animals. And I said, okay. And I didn't know what they were talking about. So one boy kindly takes me on a tour of his farm, because I had never seen it before. And so we see these adorable little pigs. And I said, oh, they're so cute. What did you name them? And he said, pork chops. I went, oh, that's so cute. And he goes, no, that's what they're going to be in the fall. And I went, you're going to eat that? And I started crying. And so they went, you really are a city kid. Because for me, the beach, everyone talked about going to the beach. And I lived in a large brownstone with a sidewalk. And in the old days, they used to put actual sand on snow. And so then they'd sweep it over to the curb. And all I heard when I was little, that there was sand at the beach. So I got a plastic spoon, one of my mother's really good spoons, but she wouldn't. And then a little cup, and I sat on the side of the road, the main street, playing in the sand. And I told everybody I'd been to the beach. And everyone looked at me, and my mother said, that's where you went out to play? I went to the beach. So my ironic life has took me to being the director of a nonprofit in environmental science and horticulture. And I spent all my time in the woods showing, by the way, I know the plants that are deadly, so if you ever want to know, I can, 2 leaves of this one plant, looks like a heart attack. But it was an eye-opening experience to how beautiful nature is and what you can learn. And everything that I studied, I still remember walking and naming trees and about the butterflies. And each time I think how far along that road of enlightenment I've come from the little girl who said, what are you going to name those kids? Those little buggers. And they said, pork chops. I thought that was going to be a cute name. So each story has something poignant for me personally. Each one brought humor or pathos, so I'm anxious to hear the rest, and I'm sure you are. I just want to remind you that on the back, there is a little form to fill out. There's pens back there when you leave. That is just to rate things how you, not the people, because they were all wonderful, but whether you would ever come back again or you would like to share another story, because I would like to keep the idea of sharing and growing from each other's experiences in Westborough. So thank you. And the next one will be Mark. What is his last name? I hardly ever saw him before. Seidelberg.
No.
I think he has something to do with the, what is that you do?
The select.
I know. You're one of those select people, because not all of them are men. So thank you for contributing to our story.
Hi, everyone. It's Mark Silverberg.
I know, I was teasing you because the other day I kept saying it wrong.
Yes, and a lot of people can get the spelling wrong, but so I don't write. I don't tell stories. I do like to gab a lot. And I got gabbing with Mary and started telling her some things from my life, and lo and behold, I got drafted to do this. So I'm very nervous. I did jot down some notes, and I'll try to stick with that. Mary had asked me, how did you get into the select board, and why you do what you do? And it really, I guess, goes pretty far back. So I first met my father when I was 33 years old. That doesn't count the year in Florida that I was born, and my parents lived together and were married. I have an identical twin brother who's three minutes older, and he never lets me forget that. And we were born in Florida, and then about a year in, my father was a musician in Florida in the 70s, which tells you about all you need to know if you have any idea of what a musician's life was like. If you have any images of what a musician's life was like in Florida in the 70s, that was it. So pretty quickly my mother figured out that she was going to be on her own, raising 2 identical balls of trouble. So she moved us back to Sturbridge to live with my grandparents, Axel and May, who were lifelong residents of Sturbridge. My grandfather had 4 brothers and a sister, all residents of Sturbridge at one point. My mom had 41 first cousins. So Sturbridge was full of Silverbergs the way Westborough was full of Dolans, isn't it? O'Neills, maybe, I don't know. But we knew everybody. We had a family there. My grandparents helped raise me. Never really felt like I didn't have a father. Everybody said, "What's it like?" And it's like, well, you have to have one to know what you're missing. So, I always got to do the soccer games, and the chauffeur duty was split between all of the parents and my, mom and grandparents. And got clothing when I wanted it. We were we were a pretty poor family, but my mom, went back to work and always put her kids first. So when we didn't have cable TV back then, so when we wanted a TV, we got a little black and white, with an antenna, and made that work. When we wanted a VCR, my mom found money for a VCR, and when we wanted Atari, my mom got us a Commodore 64, which is a computer. And I was like, Mom, we wanted Atari. So you can imagine, she wanted the best for her sons, no matter what. When we got to teenage, we started getting a little bit of trouble. So she sent us to St. John's and found the money for that, which is not cheap for a single mom. And I finished at St. John's, went to college for 4 years at Connecticut College, and she found the money for that, and to the point where she was scraping money by to get us through, and tuition and everything else. So I guess, without beating a dead horse, I'm trying to get to the point where you understand how this experience led me to be where I am. And it's kind of hard to keep going through and have you understand exactly how much my mom's generosity to us affected my life. When I started having kids, let me back up. I got engaged in 2001 after dating my wife for 7 years, and it wasn't an ultimatum, but it was a strong suggestion from her that we start looking at rings. I mean, I was 30 years old at that point. So we got engaged and we got married in 2002, and I changed my last name. So I should have probably told you this right from the get-go. My name growing up was Mark Okert, which was my father's name. So despite all of these 41 first cousins and all these family parties, there were the twin Okert boys running around that were not Silverbergs, but we were Silverbergs. So when we got married, my wife said, well, I don't really want to take Okert because it doesn't mean anything to you. And we didn't want to hyphenate And so we decided to change our last name to Silverberg to honor my mom's family and to honor my mom because of all she had given to me. And we actually took Daly, which was my wife's maiden name, as our middle name. So now it's Jennifer Daly Silverberg and Mark Daly Silverberg. And so my children were raised Silverberg. I moved to Westborough probably a week after my first son was born in 2003. And I'd say about 5 years later, I got on the planning board. But before that, about a month after my son was born, my twin brother called me up and said, you'll never guess who I heard from. And it was my father. My brother had said, well, I told him he's a grandfather now. And we set up a time to meet. And it was just outside of Worcester, and I was living in Boston, so we hadn't closed on the house yet. And I said, well, I'm not going to have you do that by yourself. So my brother and I drove out to Piccadilly Pub, I think it was in Auburn, and I met my father for the first time. And that was weird. It was very weird. I can't even tell you how meeting a stranger is, so we reconciled, and he's part of my life. He's the grandparent to my kids, and I've tried to be the bigger man about it. I can't go back, and I'm sure there's some hidden resentment that I need some mindfulness for, but I do my best with it. because I want my kids to know their grandfather, and I want him, he's a wonderful man who has definitely changed his life, and that's a story for that's his story for a different day. So that was when I met my dad for the first time, and my mom, I think, was highly uncomfortable with it, but let me make my own choices. Geez, I keep jumping around. This is what happens when you're unorganized. So I should go back up. My grandmother died when I was 24, right when I first met my wife. My wife got to meet her once or twice, but she had a heart attack and died. And so shortly after that, my mom moved back to the house in Sturbridge to live with my grandfather, who was, I guess, I forget how old he was, but she lived there till he died at age 101 in 2018. And the last 5 years of his life or more, my mom was the caretaker. So she went from caring for 2 twin boys for the first 22 years of our life to caring for my dementia-ridden grandfather for the next 22 years or so. She had a little break in between, but when he died, she wanted to move, and so she wanted to go to Florida and just live out her days in the retirement home. And she got down there, and she had 2 years, and then she had a heart attack and died at 74. And so, by that point, I had figured out how much my mom had given up for me and for everyone else in our family. And it wasn't a conscious decision for me to donate my time to the town, and in a way it's selfish because I get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But I think that growing up as someone who gave of herself constantly rubbed off on me a little bit, because I feel like I feel more whole and complete when I'm giving something back. And I think we all get some of that when we give ourselves to something altruistically, I guess. So that's why I do what I do, because of my mom.
You did wonderful. Don't let anyone make you afraid. Parents always have such a strong influence on us, and a lot of our stories. But now our second to the last speaker will be Miriam Avery, who was also part of this writing group that we've been meeting for so many years now. Cheryl Cove, who's also the 4th member, was on the list, but she has children, grandchildren, and now a flock of great-grandchildren, and one of them had an important event that she overlooked, and she got told, not asked, "You're coming, correct?" And so she sent me a quick note saying she was sorry that she couldn't make it, but she's in here in our hearts because she has shared some beautiful pieces with us. So is Miriam. So thank you.
Mary. I don't have any particularly amazing story of how I came to be in Westborough. I grew up in Worcester. So I went to the original Tatnuck Bookseller that was there, and both of my parents went to Tatnuck Elementary School. And then many years later was living in Manhattan and had my first child and wanted to move back closer to home, so my kids grew up around family, and that's when I ended up back in the area in Westborough about 10 years ago. So I'm just going to share a few things. The first one is actually about some time that I spent in Manhattan. I worked in New York City at a one-of-a-kind private school that focuses on helping children diagnosed with neurodevelopmental differences. One chilly December day, we ventured out on a field trip to show one class the tree at Rockefeller Center. One of my favorite students was in this classroom of 6 to 8-year-olds. It was generally viewed that if he left the building for something out of the ordinary, I should come along. I had worked hard to build our strong relationship and wore that badge proudly. But the staff had agreed to try things differently for this trip, so he had a different partner for this outing. We stepped out into the crisp winter air, heading west, and Julian took off like a shot. Then, with the school's awning still visible a block behind us, we ran into our first true hiccup: toys in the window of a store. Julian was a big fan of toys and felt certain that he needed, instantly, all toys of interest to him. People started yelling my name, and I ran back down the block to help. I no longer remember what I did or said to get him past his need for all of these toys. To his credit, Julian did not break down, and we resumed our walk. However, Julian was now on a 2-to-1 ratio. The children's excitement grew with each street sign they recognized. The adults were caught up in it as well. It is not my phone, I don't know what it is. The storefronts became increasingly magical. We made it past the Lego store without incident, a true Christmas miracle in itself. Julian raced over to get a close look at the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree, staring up at the enormity of it all. I always loved how easily he found joy, even if it did overwhelm his body at times. And this was a joyful moment. He was at his best. His body was regulated, he was staying with the group, and he was happy. We eagerly exchanged observations. He waved enthusiastically at the person standing guard between the fencing and the base of the Christmas tree, yelling, "Hi, how are you?" Julian did this several times, his cherubic face flush with excitement. The guard did not even look at him. The head teacher announced that it was time to move on to hot chocolate. Julian was never one to turn down a sweet, but it really irked him, and me, that this guard would not respond to him. He struggled to let go of the fencing and walk away. I spoke quiet, reassuring words as I tried to get him to loosen his grip, step off the bottom rung, and hold my hand instead. He became increasingly upset. Suddenly, Julian released his grip on the fencing and ran a few paces before collapsing to the ground, taking me with him. I was always really big for his age. He lay on top of me on the cold plaza ground, sobbing, his arms wrapped tightly around me. I did not try to move him or tell him it was time to go. I remained in the moment with him, trying to help him regain his balance. A lovely teacher's assistant by the name of Brad came over to see if I was okay. I had not noticed that people had begun to stare, as I was in this bubble with Julian. I told Brad we were fine and asked if he could just help make sure we had some space. Julian continued to clutch onto me and sob, struggling to understand why someone would not say hello to him, why he had to leave before he was able to accomplish what he felt needed to be done. After several minutes, I became more aware of my surroundings, particularly the frigidity of Manhattan asphalt in December. I tried to get us to a seated position. Through his sobs, I heard Julian say, in his wonderful, quizzical voice, "Miriam? A policeman? Oh crap, they're gonna think I'm hurting him or trying to kidnap him and arrest me." I turned and saw 2 shiny black shoes scanning up to see, indeed, a New York City police officer hovering over us. I gave Brad a "you need to take care of this, my hands are full" look, and he did. I do not know how long we were on the ground or how long a policeman kept an eye on us. All I know is that I lay on the ground underneath the Rockefeller Center Christmas tree for as long as an overwhelmed child required. I was cold and out of place, yet warm and exactly where I needed to be. Eventually, we stood up, and the 3 of us walked off hand in hand, Julian, Brad, and I, on our own private field trip. And I thought to myself, someday I am going to be a great mom. And I was going to read a couple things that I found.
It's on your phone. Okay. I stole your phone.
That's okay. So now this one is about being a parent. bound to happen. Feeling thankful in the thankless. When you need 10 reminders to do the morning routine you do every day, I am thankful it is not a morning I wake up alone. When you knock me over with a hug as I squat to tie your shoe, I am thankful that your love for me runs so deep, perhaps as deep as my love for you. When you spill your drink across the table, I am thankful that you are able to feed yourself, thankful that you are a healthy eater. When we are running late for a play date because you had to zip your sweatshirt yourself, I am thankful for your tenacity. When you interrupt my adult conversation, I am thankful you want to share your world with me. When you hurt and the tears come fast and hot, I am thankful that you seem to recover before I do, blanketed by my love. When I sit in the middle of a mountain of laundry, I am thankful that I am able to clothe you without hardship. When your little face startles me in the middle of the night, I am thankful that I can comfort you when you are scared, thankful that my cuddles are your cure. This fierce love inside of me is both mighty and effortless. I am thankful you are my magic. And then I just thought I would share what I also wrote for the Beals Preserve project that Susan had talked about. Mine is called Quiet Patriarch. It is about my papa, who actually grew up very close to Tatnuck Bookseller, and we did not have him until 101, but we did have him until a month shy of 100, so he actually got to meet my oldest child. I look through the portal and see you, our quiet patriarch, as you once were, all sinewy muscle, tanned skin, cerulean eyes as deep as the sea you once fished. Your respect for all living things imprinted on the heart of this young girl who adored you, following you around the farm, and later, your modest, immaculate yard. You taught without lecturing, let little hands plant, tend, feel big, pride filling those movie star eyes as you watched your garden of grandchildren grow right alongside the seeds you sowed. Thank you.
Now, I was just out and about waiting for people to first arrive, and I encountered a gentleman sitting surrounded by his books that he has written. So I, of course, being a book lover, I stopped to chat, and I met Jeff. And Jeff grew up here in Westborough. He doesn't live here presently, but he's an author. So I thought I would invite him up to talk a little bit about his writing experience, his life experience, his books that he's written, and how those ideas came to him. And he was kind enough to agree. So I'd like to bring up Jeffrey, and he'll give you his last name, because he only told me 2 minutes ago, and being the age I am, it slipped right out of my head. So I'm excited to hear his story, and then I will tell my last story, and we'll hear again from, because we're doing okay on time. So don't want to keep you any longer, but I want to hear everybody. Go ahead, Jeff.
Okay, I'm Jeffrey Thomas, and I did grow up in Westborough, and I obviously don't have anything prepared because Mary, kidnapped me from over there, and I'm very grateful for that. So my latest book is a novel called The Idol, and I primarily write in horror and science fiction, and often blending these genres. And I bond very hard with places that I love. The Idol takes place in a fictitious Southeast Asian country, but it's very much inspired by Vietnam. I've been to Vietnam 13 times since 2004. I was married to a Vietnamese woman, and we're divorced now, but we remain close, and I just saw my half-Vietnamese daughter peeking in at me. She's getting into trouble around here somewhere. But that setting, my experiences in Vietnam, and the country, I just fell in love with the country, and it means so much to me. But also being, no matter how many times I go there, I still feel like, of course I'm an outsider. And so sometimes I feel self-conscious about writing about Vietnam directly because I'm not a participant in the culture as much as I have shared in my in-laws' lives. I've been to funerals, weddings, and went to divorce court with my Vietnamese brother-in-law to show support to him. So I've had kind of more of an insider's view of Vietnam than just being simply a tourist. But But I feel more comfortable sometimes translating my impressions of Vietnam into this fictitious country that I write of, because for one thing, I can't be accused of getting things wrong, because it's in the end, I can always claim it's a fictitious country. But I'm still able to incorporate so many of the impressions I have. Because so many of the things I see there traveling around, I don't have a context for. And so, a background, no matter how much I might question my ex-wife about things, and in the end, I have to kind of interpret things through my own imagination, and that's, as a writer of fiction, that's what I do. And so, but another place I've bonded hard with, obviously, is Westborough. And I don't live here anymore. I live in Northbridge. I moved to Northbridge in 2013, but I grew up here. But I moved into Northbridge to be closer to my daughter at that time, who was living with her mom at that time. Now my daughter lives with me. But Westborough finds its way into my work. I've also written of a fictitious Eastborough. I think that's just a natural inclination to, if you're going to kind of fictionalize Westborough a little bit, to use Eastborough as a. But when I write of Eastborough, it's Westborough. But I love the town, and I love any excuse to come back here, even though I live in Northbridge. Any little excuse to get back to Westborough. I wish I still lived there, actually, but I'm also bonded with Northbridge also. One of the greatest thrills of my writing career was it must have been about 2006, I guess. I went into the Westborough Library, which were one of my favorite hangouts as a kid. And I was just looking at the science fiction section, and I saw they had my latest novel. And it was just a thrill for me to see it in there. And so, and as I say, Westborough, despite the fact that I write science fiction and horror and fictitious places, Westborough still finds its way into my work frequently in one way or another. And like I said, any excuse to get back here, I take advantage of. Last year, my son, your story about Julian touched me, because my son, Colin, is autistic, and I can relate to that quite a bit. He's in his 30s now, but he's very childlike. And so last year, after we hadn't trick-or-treated for years, but we didn't have any plans at Halloween, so I took my son and my daughter trick-or-treating in the streets in Westborough, where I used to trick-or-treat as a boy, around Bay State, where I used to live across the street from Bay State. And it was just very nostalgic. We walked down into Pine Grove where my parents are buried, and it was spooky and, again, nostalgic. And when I was a boy, we used to play. My mom used to take us to picnics in Pine Grove Cemetery. I'm just winging this as I go along, because but we used to go to picnics in Pine Grove Cemetery. It was a beautiful place, like a park full of beautiful sculptures. And as a teenager, my brother and I used to, we used to get up to mischief in Pine Grove. It's kind of horrible now, but we would cut like scary faces out of the movie magazine, Famous Monsters of Filmland, and tape them to gravestones. And freak people, boy, people are going to get freaked out when they go through. It's horrible to think of now, but I'm a horror writer. So, like I say, I bond very closely with the places that I love, and also like in Bar Harbor, Maine, and Acadia National Park, and so forth. And these places do find their way into my work. And this is the latest one, The Idol. And I don't want to plug it too much.
Oh, I'm here to plug it.
Okay. But
Kind enough.
I was signing copies of it today. And it incorporates, as I say, my impressions of Vietnam, some impressions of Bar Harbor and Acadia National Park and in Northbridge. And so, again, I just wanted to thank Mary for inviting me to speak to you a little bit, and it's really wonderful to like I say, any excuse to come back to Westborough. I love Tatnuck, and I spent many years here, many visits coming here with my daughter when she was little, and played over here in that little play area over there, and she's just lurking back there. So. Yeah, thank you so much
Well,
for giving me
thank
the
you.
opportunity to speak.
Okay, thank you. When I was a kid, we went to the cemetery every Sunday to visit the dead. And an Italian and an Irish family had a lot of dead people that you had to visit. And it was the only grass I ever saw because we had to walk there because we didn't have a car. And so we walked to the cemetery, but you weren't allowed to walk across a actual, extended part. You had to walk around it. And so it was this long, drawn-out affair, and had to stop at every relative. So my husband and I decided, to not be buried anywhere, that we are going to be cremated. And I wanted to be placed in the National Forestry Program where they use your ashes to plant acorns so you grow to be a tree. And I wanted an acorn because, for God's sakes, I just wanted to be tall for one time. And so we had it all planned out, but then it got a little sketchy about how things would work out with the national park. So we decided, my sister has 36 acres of Christmas tree farm. She has a lovely Christmas tree farm in Connecticut. She has a little island on it. So Burton and I will be planted under the Christmas trees when we die. And I spoke with the Pickering, right, down the street. And he was so wonderful because he kept saying, why are you so upbeat about this? You're talking about, your funeral and what I'm going to do. And my kids will come pick up the ashes and it'll be fine. And it was very inexpensive, which was even better. But in the last 15 years, I have escorted, that's the only way I can think of it, 7 different people, including my father, through elderly, sickness, hospice, death and dying, and estate cleanup. So I've written a book that's not published. It's in my closet. It's called The Grateful Dead. And it's exactly step by step of what you do when you die. Here are all the papers stapled to it so that anyone who needs to know. And I didn't think to say what song I wanted to hear, but my sister was an opera person, so she'll sing something. But yes, so all these stories are bringing back stories within me, and it's just the first time I heard Miriam's story about that little child, I remember the whole group was sitting there going, oh, that's such a wonderful, because we were all mothers and we knew how compassionate someone needs to be to work with that group of students. But now I'm going to tell you my story, and then we're going to have Steve just do a quick little while you're leaving. But I want to share a little thing with you first.
My dad.
What?
Steve's my dad's name.
Oh, right, I keep calling you Steve. See? I should have those little shots you were having. That maybe help. I read somewhere that if someone looks back at his or her memories in early adulthood, they appear along a well-tended road tracing backwards from the present to a very short trip to the past. This road is marked as clearly as any Google map with events, major and minor, highlights with names, dates, and clear signposts. However, that image of a clear road dissolves with age. The past is no longer in sequential order. It appears as a wide open meadow with only spots of familiarity, but often lacking clarity. There are flowers of memory scattered across it with no rhyme or reason, with events and dates that you once thought you would never forget. And they're intermingled with events of our parents and even our children. The standard question comes between us, do you remember when we went to Canada that summer? What year was that? But now that I'm old, I thought that I would miss that well-tended road guiding me back down memory lane. But I thought the capriciousness of the journey, wandering among the fields of memories without any concern for dates or locations, stopping in here and there to capture a scent of a memory in the field of daisies or dreams held tightly in dandelion puffs, I'd enjoy the meandering and the unearthing of my stories. So here's my story. It'll have you in tears. It was a hot, muggy day in the summer, and I had a slight fever and a rash on my cheek that kept me from my summer job. I was 19 years old, becoming a sophomore in college, home for the summer with a boyfriend, a job, and a long stretch of weeks without worry or care. Everything changed for me. August in 1969. That day was the beginning of a terrifying journey, a journey to the brink of death and back,
and a lifelong journey to find the meaning of life. I could not get out of bed. My legs, short though they are, did not respond to the usual command to stand. My family doctor recommended rest. Rest was not the cure. With each passing days, my legs became weaker. I became weaker. The summer swirled into a blur of doctor visits, tests, hospital visits, worried glances between doctors and my parents, and whispers between my parents outside my bedroom door. Each time they entered, whether it was my own room or a hospital room, their look was always the same, smiling lips betrayed by sad and worried eyes. I rapidly began to lose control of my arms, my breathing, and my speech. My bedside table was a miniature pharmacy with pills all lined up like little soldiers. My parents didn't tell me much about the results of the test. Their method of parenting was to bear the burden of hardship and keep the children in a cocoon of protected ignorance. I was smart enough to realize I was not getting any better, and I wanted answers. Less than a month from the initial fever, I repeated the final diagnosis over and over in mind. Juvenile adolescent tropopathy. Typically fatal within 6 to 12 months, targeting youth between the ages of 12 and then to 25, and is progressive. It's a neurological degenerate disease that attacks motor neurons, brain cells, spinal cord control, and any involuntary movement. As this disease progressed, the muscles got weaker, leading to paralysis, and then eventually death by respiratory failure. My sister's nursing book gave me a whole chapter on the disease made for chilling reading. After reading it, I longed to have been kept in that protective cocoon. The odds of getting this virus was 100,000 to 1, same as the state lottery. I could have won $1 million. I won the disease. Back in 1969, wasn't much known about the disease. It wasn't until 1969, 30 years later, that they found out how to cure it and how to take care of it. Adolescent ALS was no longer a dead sentence. But there is a look that comes into people's eyes and friends when they visit you, whether you're in a hospital or at home. Having friends see me in bed, unable to walk or really talk, made me feel exposed and vulnerable. My college friends were visibly uncomfortable, which led to their awkward, too cheerful banter about school and mutual friends and some gossip. It became just too exhausting for me to have these visitors. I felt a need to put out a show for them to cheer them up and appear hopeful and confident. I smiled and I nodded and I let them hug me all the while, wishing they would leave me to my own dark thoughts and feelings. My boyfriend of 6 months, Peter, was a weekly visitor. He did not cope very well with a girl confined to bed with an expiration date. He brought me gifts and cards. He talked about the future of courses we take together and how we'd go back to college. But he was young, barely 20, struggling with wanting desperately to run out of the room, yet rooted by my bedside out of sense of duty. His visits were doubly exhausting for me because I really liked him. I decided to cut him loose. I told him we could no longer see each other. I had to concentrate on my health, and I cut him out swiftly and honestly without any remorse. It was, however, the kindest gift I could give him, a way out of my medical trauma. He protested, I insisted, he cried, I cried, but in the end, both were relieved. Then came my hair, which was long in the 60s, like all the other girls. But the medication that they had me on, not only did I lose the use of my legs, my arms, my speech, I lost my hair. One of the drugs that they tried as an experiment, even though I was stiffening with paralysis, it caused my hair to fall out. The hair thing was the last straw. I lost my mind. I screamed, I ranted, I slurred every swear word I knew, and that was 3. But the hair kept disappearing into the sink. I wasn't just the sad girl in a wheelchair. Now I was a sad, bald girl in a wheelchair. Perhaps the universe heard my rants, because it was a turning point. Yes, my head looked like a mangy dog with clumps of hair amid bald spots, but that was the beginning of the cruel joke and its end, and the breaking of a new dawn. The new dawn was the next year during my summer breaks. I have to tell you, I worked for a group of neurosurgeons in Hartford, a city about 15 miles away from my home. My doctors who worked there had heard from other doctors about a girl who was suffering with juvenile ALS. When I was working for them, I was their receptionist, their all-around Girl Friday. The response to the ringing phone was my recitation of Dr. Scoville, Whitmore, Callias, and Gaume. The August that I became ill, I never told them what was the reason I was leaving. I just said, have my family call and say I wasn't coming back. It was, after all, just a summer job, and I had bigger things to think about. Oddly enough, one of those doctors in the litany of names would save my life. Dr. Scoville was a world-famous neurosurgeon. He heard about my case from one of his colleagues who asked for a consult on a rare disease involving a young woman suffering for 7 months. I only had to 10. I was the young woman, and Dr. Scoville, ironically, would become my new doctor. He arranged everything: a new hospital stay, a new set of doctors from the Mayo Clinic, and a new set of tests. What I eventually learned was how rare this disease was and how everybody wanted to pay attention to me. What I subsequently learned changed my life forever. The test revealed a rare antibody in my blood left from a virus I had contracted that last August that caused the fever and the rash. The name sounded bad, Guillain-Barré syndrome, but it was light years better than the death sentence ALS carried. This virus struck 1 in 100,000 people, leaving them with symptoms of paralysis and pain, and it was so rare in young adults, most of the time it reversed itself by abandoning the body over time and returning the functions to the limbs. But some are not so fortunate and remain in some stage of paralysis. Paralysis, I thought, that's 1,000 times better than dead. I kind of like the diagnosis. In fact, I love this diagnosis. It was 12 months of recovery from that point on. I regained the use of my arms, my legs, and my voice. And today, I still walk a little funny, and I still have no feelings in my toes. But who cares about toes? I can walk. And my hair grew back. For years after, just before I would fall asleep, I worried that perhaps brilliant Dr. Scoville was wrong, and maybe I still did have a short expiration date. But today I have lived 56 years longer than I ever thought, and I have made most of each of those moments. I have tried to live my life to the fullest, to be brave, and to push myself to fly like the Monarch. I was excited that I thought I would never be able to vote, to have a drink, to fall in love, to get married, but in turn I found out that I could have a life and be married to my husband of 51 years, who was my biggest help my first year back at college. We were both English majors. He would carry my books for me. And have 2 children, 3 children, and then 2 grandchildren. And every day, I think, today is another day of challenges, because you never stop flying like a monarch. Now here's the ending that will make you laugh. Flash to 1996. My youngest daughter, Meredith, begins her portion of the ritual at the dinner table to tell what happened at school. She was born with a hearing defect that would be eradicated when she turned 18, and they could put titanium bones in her ears. But she wore a special apparatus at school so she could hear. She begins to account for the events of her day to the family. She begins with a terrific performance on her violin, her lunch with her best friends, and then she said, but health class, she said, Mom, I can't believe it. We were talking about your illness in health class. And I said, you were? How did that come up in the conversation? She said, well, we were discussing gonorrhea in class, and I explained that you had it so badly in college that you couldn't walk and had to use a wheelchair. Trying to recapture my parental mojo, I replied, honey, I had Guillain-Barré syndrome, not gonorrhea. Those are 2 very different diseases. One look at the rest of the family, I knew I was in deep trouble at the school. My good name was suspect, and now slut was the noun that came to mind to best describe it. I soon realized that no one at school or any friend of my daughter's or any parent who heard the story was going to ever believe that I contracted something so strange and unfamiliar as Guillain-Barré syndrome. I laughed and laughed, and then I died of humiliation. Meredith's diagnosis blunder brought laughter to a subject that I had not thought about for nearly 33 years. Meredith's version of my college life is often retold to any new friends by my adult children who enter the family. They are happy to tell how their mother once had gonorrhea and became the official slut of the PTA. I'm grateful that I could die of humiliation and later of laughter, and I'm alive to tell the funny tale. So that's the sadness gone into. So I did not have gonorrhea. I want it clear on the tape. I did not have gonorrhea. And I appreciate all of you for coming tonight. And please take a moment, there are pens if you don't have one, to fill this out. And if you would like to join and have it again, put down your name and your email and we'll get together and we'll hopefully be able to put another one together. I am doing a podcast of the same kind of situation, but for people who really are terrified or cannot speak in front of a group and they want to tell their story, or their story is so personal, they want to use a name that isn't associated with their face. And so, but their story is important. So we're going to have another episode, not of your stories, because you did it live for TV, but you will be doing another podcast of stories from the Borough called Monarch #2. Okay, so thank you all for coming. There are pens in the back. Thank you for taping us. Thank you for the stories and the book. And then back to you and now, Stephen. No, it's not Stephen.
You know, I actually have a funny story about that.
Okay, quick.
It's a quick story.
Let's tell me.
So my name's Andrew Pollan again. My dad's name is Steve Pollan, and that happens to rhyme with the title of a famous Tom Petty song, which I'm not about to play for you. And one of his former co-workers, every time it would come on, would say, "And I'm Steve Pollan." So I have a ghost story in the form of a song that I'm also not about to play for you because I don't think it's very family friendly. There's a lot of murder and bloodshed and mayhem, and it's a little long for the time we have left here. So I'm just going to play you out with just an instrumental version of a tune that I wrote that had words that I threw away. So you know, feel free to if you have to go, by all means. You know, don't feel you need to stay for this whole thing. But if you actually like hearing me play, then
Yes.
that's nice too. By all means. I actually forget what I used to call this one.
Play.